Australia Day means different things to different people, but I think for most of us, it's certainly an opportunity to celebrate all that Australia has achieved. Our multiculturalism, our diversity, our history, our culture, our way of life. There's actually quite a nice quote from our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, who says that a free country debates its history, it does not deny it. And Australia Day is the day for all Australians to have that opportunity to engage in, celebrating all of our history. For your typical Australian, it's an occasion to spend time with family and friends. Because for us it's summer, most of the activities tend to be outdoors. So if you live near the coast, people go to the beach, they have barbecues, they play outdoor backyard cricket. But it's very much a family opportunity. We also have some of our key sporting events that actually happen around the same time as Australia Day, and at the moment the Australian Open Tennis is on in Melbourne. Ukraine has a number of players who are participating in that tournament, and they're actually doing fantastically. I must say a couple of them have actually beaten Australians in the draw, which isn't quite so good, but no, Ukraine's athletes are acquitting themselves very well at that tournament. So I arrived in September 2017 to take up my assignment here. I've been overwhelmed by just how welcoming everybody has been, both people that you just meet in your general going about life, but also everybody from the Ukrainian government, my diplomatic colleagues. I've been made to feel very welcome, which I'm very much appreciating. It's nice to find out that Ukraine holds such a high regard for Australians. There seems to be a lot of goodwill towards our country, which is fantastic for me as ambassador. I've enjoyed the little bit of Kiev that I've been able to see before winter descended. I have previously, back in 2015, had the opportunity to visit both Odessa and Lviv, and very much enjoyed those trips. And I'm looking forward in 2018 to getting out and about and seeing a lot more of this beautiful country. Last year we celebrated the 25th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Australia and Ukraine. I've been very fortunate to inherit a bilateral relationship that's actually in very good condition. We were lucky enough to have President Poroshenko visit our country back in 2014 in December, and we've had our Foreign Minister come here also that year. And last year we had the President of our Senate visit Ukraine rather. In terms of our diplomatic relations more broadly, Australia released its foreign policy white paper towards the end of 2017, which is our diplomatic blueprint going forward. It made clear that Australia remains very supportive of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, remains concerned about the situation in the Donbass, Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea, as well as the downing of MH17, which remains a key concern for Australia. That document also indicated that Australia believes very strongly that international law should be upheld, and that we very much reject actions like what Russia has done in terms of its illegal annexation of Crimea, which threatens international security. MH17, as I mentioned, was a very unfortunate incident back in July 2014. There were 38 Australian citizens and residents on the plane. We've been very appreciative for the strong support that Ukraine has provided through the period in terms of both the initial recovery operation, but now the investigation leading to prosecution. Australia stands united with Ukraine in wanting to see the victims see some justice in terms of the perpetrators of that crime being held to account, and that's something that we feel we very much owe the victims and their families. Another avenue in which Australia is supporting Ukraine is in international fora, notably with respect to upholding Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Key avenues for that have been Australia both co-sponsored and also, of course, voted in favour of the annual resolution that Ukraine runs in terms of Crimea. And Australia is pleased to be serving with Ukraine from this year for 3 years on the UN Human Rights Council. Our bilateral relationship is continuing to expand and grow. Trade is still modest, but we are hoping to improve it. I think their distance is a little bit of a problem for us. Australia is a very long way from Ukraine, and the other difficulty that we have is that we actually produce some of the same things. So things like mining, agriculture are also areas where Australia is quite active. But certainly in terms of services, that with respect to mining and agriculture, we think that there are areas there that we could do more. Investment is still also modest in both directions, but it's another area that we're hoping we will be able to boost. Australia and Ukraine have now concluded an agreement on nuclear cooperation. Once they are in place, that will facilitate the export of uranium from Australia to Ukraine. Australia, as you know, I know it's a very long way from Ukraine, but certainly travelling there is very rewarding. It's a very diverse country. Ukraine is very big, but Australia is even bigger. Sydney, with its Opera House, its harbour, the Harbour Bridge, of course, gets a lot of people excited. Our other key cities, Melbourne, Brisbane, the capital, Canberra. We have a lot of unique flora and fauna, koalas and kangaroos, wombats and emus, things that are unique to Australia that people come to see. Australia has 19 World Heritage Sites which are spread around the country. The most famous ones are probably the Great Barrier Reef in far north Queensland and both Kakadu and Uluru in the Northern Territory. So there's a lot for people to come and see, and indeed I haven't even mentioned yet the most important from my perspective, which is Australia's beaches. Most of our major cities are on the coast, and we are fortunate enough to have endless, nice, long beaches with beautiful white sand and fantastic weather with which to enjoy it. My favourite thing to do personally when I'm at home is to actually take a walk on the beach as the sun's going down. I find it very relaxing to listen to, the waves coming in whilst you're walking along. I very much hope that more people from Ukraine have the opportunity to go down under and see all that we have to offer, because Australia is a fantastic country and it's well worth the effort to go and see. We actually have a very strong Ukrainian diaspora in Australia, which numbers about 46,000 people who claim Ukrainian heritage. They're very active at every level. We have one of the most diverse and multicultural countries in the world. As I mentioned, there are 46,000 people of Ukrainian background in Australia, but we have every other country around the world is also represented. And they have made such a contribution to our culture, food. I mean, Australia has fantastic restaurants offering all sorts of different foods and fusion foods. So we have embraced our multiculturalism and are making the most of learning from those peoples in terms of their traditions, their heritage, and also their cultures and their food. We have a very active public diplomacy program. It's primarily focused around trying to bring Australian artists to Ukraine so that they can share their music or their art with the Ukrainian audience. In terms of some of the things that we have done recently, in December we had an Australian jazz band called The Necks who was here playing both in Kiev, Lviv and also Lutsk. We had an Australian oud player, which is a little guitar. His name was Joseph Tavares, and he was here also in December, and we're hoping that he may come back later this year. We have some things on the art scene. We did a joint photo exhibition with our Lithuanian colleagues for a Lithuanian-Australian photographer who actually had a Ukrainian mother. His name was Oleg Truhanis, and the subject of most of his photography was actually the Australian state of Tasmania. So we did a photo display to bring his work to a Ukrainian audience in the last couple of months of last year. Our embassy also has a touring exhibition of some Indigenous artworks, which is called the Old Masters. Our embassy participated in the IWIC Charity Bazaar, which was run in early December, helping to raise money for people that are in need of assistance. That was good fun, and it also allowed us to, bring some of our foods like lamingtons and chocolate koalas and the like to a Ukrainian audience, which was fantastic for us. The key event that we have coming up is we have an Australian flautist. Her name is Anna de la Vega. She will be performing in Kiev on the 29th of January as part of an event that we are holding in conjunction with our National Day, which we call Australia Day. It's actually the second time that she has been to Ukraine. She was here in 2016 and played concerts in both Kiev and Lviv, and we're very much looking forward to seeing her back here. Her concert will be with the Kiev Chamber Orchestra, as well as her husband, who is a German violinist, and they are playing Mozart. The public response has been overwhelming. Often I think it's a curiosity because, Australia is so far away and there's still not a lot of awareness of what we have to offer. But certainly the feedback we've had from people that have attended our events has been very positive. We've also had the opportunity through Ukraine's hosting of Eurovision last year to actually raise awareness of Australia's participation in Eurovision. I know that for a lot of people, they still don't quite understand how a country that is down in the Indo-Pacific manages to participate in an event that is focused very much here on Europe. But we're very grateful that Eurovision has extended invitations for Australia to participate, and our artists have actually done quite well. Indeed, back in 2016, when Ukraine's artist Damalia actually won Eurovision, Australia actually came second. Last year, when Ukraine hosted, we had Isaiah Firebrace, who was a young Australian Indigenous artist. He came and performed here. He also had the opportunity to get out and about in Kiev, visited a school. He was a fantastic ambassador for us in terms of raising awareness here in Ukraine about what Australia is all about in the musical scene, and he came ninth. So that was a good result for us. We will be participating in Eurovision again this year in Portugal. We have another Indigenous Australian whose name is Jessica Malboy representing us, and we certainly hope that our competitor does very well, and indeed that Ukraine also does well again in the competition this year. I have been actually overwhelmed to see just how positively and how well Ukraine has embraced the spirit of Invictus. Invictus was established a couple of years ago by Prince Harry from the UK, and it's all about wounded war veterans. They're people that have unfortunately suffered either physical or PTSD type injuries in war, and obviously in Ukraine's case in the Donbass conflict. This is about trying to help them get back in the groove, get back in the swing of things. From Australia's perspective, it's actually some of our armed services personnel who have been active in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and suffered injuries there. They are the backbone, if you like, of our team. And yeah, there's a number of nations who have soldiers involved in conflicts around the world. That's what Invictus is about. It's an opportunity for them to all get together, have their own little mini Olympics, and as I said, their stories are just truly inspirational in terms of the adversities, the difficulties that they've had to overcome to really try and get themselves, back in the groove, back in the swing of things. As you would know, 2017 was the first opportunity for Ukraine to participate in the Games in Toronto. You had a fairly small team of just 15 athletes, but they did fantastically. They won 14 medals. President Poroshenko attended part of the Games in Toronto, and when I presented my credentials to him at the end of November, he spoke very warmly about his experience in Toronto and was very much looking forward to the Games which we will host in Sydney this October. I've had the opportunity to meet some of the Ukrainian team members. They are so inspirational, they are very passionate, and I'm sure that they are going to acquit themselves very well in Sydney. We are already working together with the Ukrainian team in terms of all of the bits and pieces that will facilitate their participation. We are also engaged with the Ukrainian diaspora in Australia, which cannot wait to welcome the Ukrainian team and is working closely with them in terms of all of the avenues of support. The games in Toronto, which the Canadians hosted, were so well run. The Canadians truly did a fantastic job, but I hate to tell them that Sydney will be bigger and better, and we very much hope that Team Ukraine does a fantastic job down there.